Hello and welcome to my review of the Adeptus Mechanicus Skorpius Disintegrator. One of these models will set you back £45 and it's a dual unit kit in that you can build either the Skorpius Disintegrator, which is advertised here on the front of the packaging, or you can opt to build the Skorpius Dune Rider, which is the kind of troop transport variant of it. There are ways of magnetizing bits and pieces of the front in order to swap between the two different units, but it is a bit of an effort. You have to remove this front bull bar arrangement. There are some extra armoured pieces that come up the front, and also you have to manipulate the front, but it is possible. I just wish Games Workshop had made it an easier thing to manipulate. Now, this model did come out last year in 2019 in the summer, and when I first looked at it I thought, that's not Mechanicum at all. That's some kind of hovercraft thing. We haven't seen any kind of hovercraft vehicles in 40K before. We've always had like the repulsor plated vehicles or anti-gravitic vehicles such as the land speeders, tracked vehicles and wheeled vehicles, but never really seen any vehicles that move along on a cushion of air, I guess, but never really any vehicles that move along on a cushion of air. So this was a bold new direction for Games Workshop and Mechanicus, which atypically took the route of legged vehicles or tracked vehicles for Mechanicum. They incorporate a lot of what's called like zoomorphism, where vehicles or machines take on the form of creatures and animals that we find in nature, such as beetles and spiders and hounds and even ostriches, I want to say, with the ballistari. Anyway, what we'll do is we'll have a closer look at the model, and at £45 I thought, that is pretty expensive, but little did I know that we'd eventually one day get the Impulsor, and that is an expensive kit. But hindsight's a wonderful thing, and yes, I would still have preferred this model to be £35, maybe 40 at the most. I still think 45 is too much for it, but like the Impulsor, it kind of depends on how many you're going to get, which battlefield role you are going to assign to it. Now, it's quite a good tank, however it's a dual purpose kit and it's quite a decent tank, and it's also quite a decent transport comparing it to other factions transport options. So we'll have a look at the detail of this disintegrator, then I'll show you the spare parts, we'll go through some size comparisons with other transports, and then finally we'll go through all of the rules, which are included in the kit. You get the rules for both the disintegrator and the Dune Rider, which is fantastic, something that can't be said for the Stratoraptor. Alternatively, if you want to find the rules in an actual book, you can find them in Psychic Awakening Book 7, Engine War. So let's have a little look at the detail of the model. So I've glued these. I would suggest you glue these stubbers as well, rather than keep them loose. They have a plug and socket mechanism for you to glue them in that one pose. You can't rotate them, which is a bit of a pain, but there we go. You've got this little scanner type Auspex array thing, targeter, which coincides with these with the missile launcher, which is not to be overlooked. Oh my lord. Oh, Mechanicus, they just don't make them like they used to, do they? No, we'll get to that point in a moment. Yeah, it's not to be overlooked. You may see this tank and go, oh, just a little hover tank. It's got some heavy stubbers. It's got some kind of cannon thing. It doesn't look that intimidating. It's also got these missiles, which are a bit of a threat, and another stubber there. But yeah, it's got a fair amount of let's just leave that off, shall we? Underneath, there's just this huge hole. You know, there's no doorway or anything. It's just left empty. Games Workshop didn't even bother to sort of make a plastic kind of covering there. It's just, you know, if you do that, look, you can see straight through the tank, which is which is quite bizarre, because even rhinos and things have a, you know, they at least have the base completely covered. But anyway, you've got this. You've got two cupolas here. You've got one here with a, again, sort of. Can you put your, yeah, you can put your finger through that maybe, and then you've got a second one here. So they are flanking this kind of central turret with another hole there in the tank. You can move the turret around. It's just a simple rounded turret. It doesn't like lock into place like other vehicles. Have I glued these into place? Well, clearly not. I haven't glued these into place. These are on a kind of plug and socket as well. So once they're in, yeah, once they're in, they don't really move that much. Oh, I've yet to file that down. I've just realised that, to sort of hide the join. But you've got this. This one isn't on a plug and socket. This is just a cylindrical kind of attachment. So, and it goes on quite firmly. You don't have to glue it. I might glue it later on. I'm getting so many tanks and things with parts that I don't glue, and then I'm losing them, or they're, you know, falling into boxes and things. Anyway, so that's the turret, and it just goes to show you can arm this with two different weapons, and they're weapons that I never really heard of before until the arrival of this tank. This weapon here is called the Thermite cannon. We'll go through the rules for that one, but pretty much it's a long range 3-shot strength 8 weapon, so it's nice anti-armor weapon there. And then this little chode of a weapon, if we just, can we attach it there? Yeah, that goes on quite well, I guess. So this little, oh my lord, this is the issue of not gluing things on at all. So this little weapon here, this is called a Bellaros energy cannon. The missile launcher there is called a disruptor missile launcher. So all weapons that we've never really heard of, a little bit exotic. Nice to see some new weapons for Adeptus Mechanicus, much like we got some new weapons for the Sulphur Hounds and the Archaeopter. But yeah, so these weapons never heard of before. The reason why I've left them unglued is, well, it just goes to show you that you can swap them out. When it's painted and it's had a couple of layers of paint, they're going to slot in tighter. It's going to be a tighter fit, but there's nothing really stopping you from drilling out a cylindrical hole, putting a little bit of plastic backing in, gluing that, and then gluing a very small magnet and drilling a hole into the weapon, and again gluing a small magnet there and then magnetizing it. And I think that's what I will end up doing when I get my hands on some more small magnets. But if you wanted to leave it like that, this Thermite cannon is a little bit loose, as you can tell. So yeah, but the option is there, and the Thermite cannon is arguably way better. But if you wanted it as a full anti-horde tank, then yeah, the Bellaros cannon is sort of the way to go. So I kind of overskipped some of the detail, but you've got a load of venting here. You've got some transmitters. You've got a little fan. You've got the two big turbo fans here with the directional paddles. What are they called? Fins. You know what I'm talking about. You've got a couple of exhaust. You've got a couple of exhausts there as well. You've got a little ladder, which is a bit of a pain because each one is an individual piece to put on. What issues did I have with the tank? Well, just some of the mould lines in places, specifically these bars. Those mould lines were a bit of a pain, and there were mould lines to do with, and that was about it really. The tank actually went together really well, like the seams and everything. Everything lined up and joined well, unlike the recent Primaris tanks. So that's the disintegrator. Let's show you some spare parts, other than the, you know, Thermite cannon that you get. So if you build the disintegrator, these are the spare parts you get. As I said before, you get the sort of loading ramp, which you could use on a base maybe. Titan could be trampling on it, or part of scenery. You get these, which are kind of quite cool. I'm not sure what else you could use them for. These are just the size of the tank that you'd have for the Dune Rider. You get Skitari. Now, what I actually did, now because I built the disintegrator, I actually found a couple of 25mm bases and built two Skitarii out of the models that you get. So if you're building the Disintegrator, you get the tank and 2 more Skitarii Rangers, which is amazing. If you get 2 of these tanks, then you're going to get 4. That's, you know, almost half a unit there, which is a nice little bonus if you're opting for this tank. Because if you use them for the Dune Rider, they are the gunners in the sort of transport bay. Unfortunately, you can't just glue the guns in there and take the 2 Rangers out and use the Rangers individually, because the Rangers' arms, hands, they connect to the weapon firing mechanisms and handles, which you can't detach from their hands. Anyway, you also get this little turret shield, you get a little ladder, which would go in the transport bay. You get some more stubbers, you get some different helmets and things because you can have a ranger or a vanguard popping out of one of the hatches. You get a pointy arm. So a few of these, like this little pistol as well, a few of these things can be used, and the heads as well, and the power plants, they can be used with the rest of your force, some of these pieces, definitely. So that's a nice little added bonus, these extra parts which are usable. Okay, so let's go through some size comparisons. Firstly, of course, I wanted to show you a size comparison with it next to a Dune Rider. They are pretty much exactly the same size. Maybe the Dune Rider looks a bit bigger just because it's got an open top in a way, with the lovely ramp that does actually close, so that's cool. It does look slightly odd when it is closed because there's nothing, you know, got on the top of these rails, but that just gives you an impression, an idea of what they look like. It looks like a typical landing craft this way with the ramp open, and yeah, clearly they share almost all the aesthetics with one another. This one's got this turret operated servitor thing, and you've got a Ranger peeping out. It's the exact same servitor on the main turret, but with a different targeting array thing on its head. Compared to other Adeptus Mechanicus vehicles, I've got a Ballistari there. Ballistari is a lot taller. But even the Iron Strider Ballistarius is £32.50, so that's only £12.50 cheaper. And as much as I like the Ballistarius, I do think you're getting more with the Skorpius. Other Adeptus Mechanicus vehicles. We've got the Archaeopter here, of course. Now this is a £60 model, but then again, it is very overpriced in my opinion. That weapon is going to probably fall off, but that just gives you an idea of what an extra £15 pays for. In my opinion, I prefer the Skorpius. Maybe not for looks, I guess, because I think the Archaeopter is nice quirky vehicle, but definitely as a kit and its usefulness on the battlefield. The Archaeopter is quite small, you know, it can't even transport 10 troops, whereas, you know, if you build the Dune Rider it can. It is hard to see the shared aesthetics with these 2 Adeptus Mechanicus units now. There's not many at all other than like the stubbers. But there you go, that gives you an idea of you know, the £45 model and then the £60 model. Compared to other Adeptus Mechanicus models, you've seen it next to some Rangers, but I've got the cool looking Sulphur Hounds and a Tech Priest Dominus, also a Breacher, or is that a Destroyer? I think it's Destroyer probably. Yeah, so that's where it stands compared to them. I'd say it's a medium-ish tank. It's not a large tank by any means. It's not as large as a Land Raider or so. And then I just want to compare it to some Imperium models. So you may want to see it compared to the Impulsor, which is right here. Now this model is also a £45 vehicle, and I much prefer the Skorpius. And there is a trend forming that I'm actually preferring models and units in other armies now compared to Space Marines, and that never used to happen. I always preferred the Space Marine look of vehicles and units compared to other races. And ever since like the Centurions, I want to say 7 years ago, Space Marines, in my opinion, have been on a bit of a slight decline in terms of their looks and their designs. And I'm not saying that other armies have had some poor models, but there we go. So that's the size of it compared to the Impulsor. It's a very similar size. The Impulsor is probably a little bit thicker at the rear and thinner at the front, which is the opposite of the Skorpius. But the Impulsor can only carry 6 Primaris. And now in terms of loadout, the Primaris vehicle does have a huge number of weapons compared to like the Dune Rider, which only has like the 3 lots of stubbers, and definitely the Disintegrator has that main weapon too. And then just a couple more comparisons. This is a lot of size comparisons today. Here's a Rhino. Everyone knows the size of a Rhino, and that's what it stands up with next to one of those. So it is bigger than a Space Marine Rhino, which will now set you back £27.50. So a model that came out almost 25 years ago is selling for almost £30. But that gives you an idea there that the Disintegrator is a fair bit bigger. And the final comparison I just wanted to make is next to Primaris Repulsor. This vehicle is only £5 more expensive and carries the same number of units as the Disintegrator, and maybe they planned that. Maybe they set the Disintegrator at such a high price because they saw that what they were offering with the Repulsor, which is a tank bristling with weapons, can carry 10 Primaris Space Marines, and it revolves around the Skorpius being set at such a high price point that it makes a model that is more expensive look like better value. And yeah, for £5 more, this does look like better value. It's much bigger, there's way more parts. The only downside though is it's not a dual kit. Whereas the Disintegrator, you can choose to make either or, but with a bit of imagination and hobby skills you can opt to magnetize it. And finally, the last size comparison that I want to make, I promise, it's quite an exhaustive comparison session today, but it's with some Space Marines and Slime Marbo. I always like to do this. So as you can see, the Primaris is, yeah, he almost comes up to the top of the tank. Space Marine is probably about half the height of the tank. So this Disintegrator, the Skorpius, is bigger than you'd think. Okay, now you've come to my part of the review where I will go through all of the rules for the Skorpius Disintegrator. As I mentioned earlier, you can find the rules included in the kit, which is amazing, or you can read them in the Psychic Awakening Book 7 Engine War, where you'll find the other rules for the Taraxi, the Sulphur Hounds and the Archaeopter, as well as the Tech Priest Manipulus. So the Skorpius Disintegrator, it's a heavy support choice. Finally we get another heavy support choice for the Adeptus Mechanicus to go alongside the Onega Dune Crawler. It's a power points cost of a 6 and a points cost of 65. You will need to pay for either the Bellaros energy cannon, which is 20 points, or the Ferromite cannon, which is 25 points. So right there, it's 90 points. The Disruptor missile launcher is free though, which is fantastic. It includes 3 Cognis heavy stubbers, so you are going to have to spend another 6 points on that, so that's 96. But the broad spectrum data tether is free. So pretty nice vehicle for 96 points. It's under 100 points there, and you're getting a long range, fast moving, heavy support tank. But on the points alone and its loadout, definitely worth getting 2 of them at least, if your Mechanicus is lacking that long range firepower. It's one of these units where its remaining wounds is affected by the damage it takes. So it starts off with 12 wounds, and if it's got between 7 and 12, its movement speed is 12 inches and ballistic skills 3+ and attacks are 3. 4 to 6 wounds, movement speed drops to 9 inches, ballistic skill 4+ and attacks D3. And then remaining wounds 1 to 3, movement speed is 6 inches, ballistic skill is 5+ and attacks of 1. Its weapon skill is 6+, it's got a strength of 6 and a toughness 7, 12 wounds, leadership 8 and a save of 3+. The only difference between this stat line for the Disintegrator and the troop transport, you know, the Dune Rider, is that its toughness is better. Instead of toughness 6, it's got a toughness 7, but it still has the same number of wounds. A Skorpius Disintegrator is a single model equipped with 3 Cognis heavy stubbers, Disruptor missile launcher, Ferromite cannon. It has a broad spectrum data tether. Now the weapon that I've picked there very temporarily of course, is called the Ferromite Cannon. And this is a new weapon that we haven't really seen before, and it's a range of 48 inches, it's a heavy 3, strength 8, AP -3 and a damage of 3. Now that's the big thing you want to be looking at, is the damage of 3. A typical missile launcher, a crack missile, is only a heavy 1 shot, strength 8, it's only AP is -2 and its damage is D6. Yes, you could get damage 6 of course, but it's a solid weapon that it has the 3 shots and it has that AP -3. It's not to be overlooked, and it has the solid damage of 3, not D3 or D6 or anything like that. So it's a very solid frontline long range weapon, with the tank having the effective range there of 60 inches. So it packs a lot of punch for a little hover tank, I guess. Now the Bellaros energy cannon is the other weapon that you can equip it with. This drops the range to 36 inches, heavy 3d3, so possible of 9 shots there, strength 6, AP -1, but it does have damage 2, and its trick up its sleeve is that the weapon can target units that are not visible to the bearer. Again, effective range there of 48 inches. First turn movement, you're most likely going to be in range of anything on the board, and it falls into the rare category of tanks that can fire on units that are not visible to it. So if you've got a unit behind cover, completely obscured, it can fire those potentially 9 shots of strength 6 and reduce their armor saves as well. Definitely the weapon to go for if you're against a Horde army. Typically Horde army, you've got a lot of bodies on the board and they've probably got terrible armor saves, so your opponent is most likely hiding them. So again, that's another reason to take that weapon over the Ferromite Cannon. It has 3 Cognis heavy stubbers. They are a range of 36 inches, heavy 3, strength 4, AP 0, damage 1. You can choose to shoot this weapon even if the bearer advanced, but when resolving an attack made with this weapon, if the bearer advanced, you subtract 2 from the hit roll. That's fair enough. There's still going to be 9 shots at 5+, which is still alright. Coupling that up with the Bellaros energy cannon, you could potentially have 18 shots there. So it's a real horde killer at an effective range of 48 inches. A lot of damage output there. For its points cost, less than 100. Now this other weapon that it's equipped with, and it's always got this, is the Disruptor missile launcher. Again, it's a 36 inch range weapon. It's heavy D6, so there's a little bit of chance there. You could just get 1 shot from it, but then again you could get 6, and it's a strength 7, AP -2 and a damage of D3. That's another weapon not to be overlooked. So equipped with a Bellaros energy cannon, you could potentially be pumping out 24 shots if you're extremely lucky. And some of those shots will be AP -2 and potentially damage 3. So I love the fact that this tank's minimum range is the 36 inches. And it's a fast tank at 12 inches. So war gear options, this model can be equipped with 1 Bellaros energy cannon instead of 1 Ferromite cannon. Abilities, Canticles of the Omnissiah, you need to see the codex for that one. Broad spectrum data tether. At the start of the morale phase until the end of the phase, add 1 to the leadership characteristic of Forge World models whilst their unit is within 3 inches of any friendly models with a broad spectrum data tether. Now you're going to have them, quite close, within 3 inches for that. Hover platform. This model does not suffer the penalty for moving and firing heavy weapons. That's great. I mean, I know it's a movement of 12 inches, but tanks like the Predator, it's still a movement of 12 inches, but it's great that it can move and fire that cannon. So all the more reason to be moving at 12 inches all the time and firing everything. Explodes. When this model is destroyed, roll 1d6 before removing it from play. On a 6 it explodes and each unit within 6 inches suffers D3 mortal wounds. Keywords: Imperium, Adeptus Mechanicus, Skitarii, Forge World, Vehicle, Skorpius Disintegrator. But super! How does it compare to the other heavy support choices in the Adeptus Mechanicus army? Well, they only have 2 at present, which is either the Castellan robots, which are way more expensive, or the Onaga Dune Crawler, which is a similar points cost. And it has similar strength and toughness and number of wounds. But the Dune Crawler is just a single model armed with 1 weapon. Its movement is also, I say, quite slow. It's an 8-inch movement vehicle. However, that too ignores the penalty to hit rolls for moving and firing heavy weapons, and it's equipped with an eradication beamer, which is a shorter range weapon than the Ferromite cannon, has less shots, same strength, but not as good AP or damage, but it does have a special ability. However, you can pick the eradication beamer, which is the same range again, or the Icarus array, or even the dreaded neutron laser, which is what I would equip them with. And it can take a heavy stubber. However, the Dune Crawler does have a 5+ invulnerable, which increases its survivability. What you're getting here with this Disintegrator is a faster moving weapons platform with the Ferromite cannon and the Disruptor missile launcher, with 3 Cognis heavy stubbers. The Dune Crawler, it's a one-trick pony in a way. You can only have the one main weapon, which you're investing the whole model into, and possibly having a Cognis heavy stubber. I can just see the Onega Dune Crawler being swamped in combat, or flanked, or just picked upon, whereas at least the Disintegrator can zip about the board, firing from a good 60 inches away. Comparing it to the Castellan robots, well, they're the same speed as the Onega Dune Crawler, and they typically have much shorter range weapons that don't do as much damage. The fists are usually the most damaging aspect, along with their repulsor grid, so they're quite expensive for what you get. Moving forward, I'd very much like to see more heavy support. You know, having 3 choices now seems very weak in an army that builds weapons and builds armor and creates all the ammunition and things in all the forges. If you don't want to go down the apocalyptic route of incorporating a very expensive knight in your Adeptus Mechanicus army, which you can get an errant, a paladin, a warden, a gallant, or a crusader even. You know, a crusader would give you a lot of extra firepower, and it's the same movement speed as this, and obviously can fire all of its heavy weapons with a rapid fire battle cannon at 72 inches, but it doesn't have any weapon that's 48 inches, other than the you know, the rocket pods that they have on the top of them, such as the Iron Storm, which is, you know, 72 inches of course, or the Twin Cognis autocannon. But yeah, in points cost, it's 3 times cheaper than a knight. Of course, it has nowhere near the survivability or damage output, but I think for the points that you're paying, you're definitely getting a lot. I think it's a very worthy addition to the Mechanicus force, and now I want to see Games Workshop invest more into this faction and have kind of slower moving but more powerful weaponry, such as big beam cannons on track that we've already seen in the Mechanicum range from Forge World. I hope that that's the direction they go in, bringing more 40k rules to the Mechanicum range. We've already got 40k rules for the Assault Drill and the Secutari. It would be great to see some 40k rules for the Battle Automata and the Thanatars and the Castellax, as well as some of the Ordinatus weaponry. Anyway, that's quite a long, exhaustive review. I hope you've enjoyed it. What do you guys think of the model? Have I helped uncover some thoughts and opinions that have swayed you more to liking this model and vehicle? Please do put it in the comments below as always. Please share your gaming experiences with this tank on the battlefield, and whether it doesn't make it onto your list and you prefer to pay for a load of Dune Crawlers instead. Put it in the comments below as always. Thank you ever so much for joining me today. Thank you for watching. The Omnissiah protects.